Hey there, Wargamers, Justin R. Painter here from Death Threat Designs, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to approach painting the binding on your weapons. Now this is an effect that's interesting to me because it's using different colors. Typically I'd use like a red or a leather type color, a brown, but today we're going to be using something different. I think it's going to look really cool on your miniatures, and hopefully you'll try it out. Today we're going to be working with a Power Axe from the Sanguinary Guard kit, and if you're interested in how we got it in its current state, how we got the silver and the power weapon effects, I've got tutorials in our YouTube library already up that showcase how to do this, so make sure you check those out. But for today, we're going to be focusing on how to do the binding that we've not finished on this particular piece. Typically when approaching bindings or leather straps or pouches and so forth on miniatures, I would go with something in the brown area, but today we're going to be doing something a little bit different, and we're going to be using some pink colors, and I think you guys will really appreciate this effect. To complete today's tutorial, we will need a couple of paints. First and foremost, we're going to need some Screamer Pink, as well as Pink Horror from Citadel, followed up by some Kerberg Crimson Wash from Citadel as well. The first step we're going to achieve here is we're going to lay down some Screamer Pink across the binding here. Now when you're approaching this for your miniatures, if you find this is going on too thin, remember 2 thin coats is appropriate. Now, especially in this case, because the color underneath is black, we may need a secondary coat because this may just not get the coverage that we want. If you were trying to prepare the surface for the pink color ahead of time and you didn't want to paint over the black, you might start by painting a beige color or a brown because the pink's going to cover that very well. But in this case, we'll do a couple thin coats as necessary and get these bindings taken care of. Depending on which weapon you're applying these effects to, you may have some areas where you have to paint the binding on one part and then transition over and paint on another part with a hand in the middle. Getting to some of these areas and targeting those can be rather difficult. Just remember, be patient, apply multiple coats as necessary, and don't rush this. The last thing you want to do is to try and rush a step on your miniature and then get paint on something you previously worked hard on and mess it up. With our second pass now applied, you can see the coverage on this binding is much better. That being said, we need to let this dry so we can get on to the next step. Now that we've let our previous layers dry, it's time to come in with our Pink Horror. With this, we're going to be coming in for some edge highlights, focusing on the top edges of all these binding areas. Now this is going to look kind of weird at first, maybe for you. It did for me when I first did it because we're working with a bright pink color, and this is not something I traditionally do with binding wraps. But after I did this on my first miniature, which was the Chaplain I gave away on Twitch not too long ago, I really fell in love with this effect. I thought it looked really cool. If you find that while applying your highlights here that they aren't quite as intense as you want, let them dry and come back for a second pass. That's what I did because my paints were a little bit thin, and by applying that second pass I increased the intensity of the edge highlight, which is exactly what I was going for. At this point, you could call this piece complete if you're going for tabletop standard or maybe a little bit above, but in this case I'm going to have a couple extra steps I'm going to show you guys that I think are really going to make this piece pop. I've already applied 2 layers of our Pink Horror for highlights, but we're going to come in with a little bit of wash to give some depth. For that, we're going to use our Kerberg Crimson. This is going to pull our pink and purpley kind of colors together and also give us some depth and some gradients in our binding wraps. When approaching the wash step here, make sure you apply a nice coat to the whole surface. Allow it to pool in areas that look realistic and cool to you, but make sure you use the capillary action of your paintbrush to pull off excess wash where it looks like it's pooling too much or it's taking away from the overall look of the piece. Now in this particular case, again, we are using the Kerberg Crimson from Citadel, but you could come in with some different color washes if you want to tint the bindings a different way. So you might consider coming in with a Druchii Violet if you want a more purple hue. You might come in with an Agrax Earth shade if you want something more on the brown side, or maybe even a Reikland Flesh shade if you want something a little bit different from the Kerberg Crimson we've got here. So the sky really is the limit, and simply by changing the wash that you're using, you can get some different effects. With our wash now dry, it's time to come in for one final step, and for that we're going to apply one more edge highlight of Pink Horror to the top edges of these bindings. Now when we're applying this, we don't want to go too heavy or too thick. We want to leave some of the previous layers showing through. This high point is going to help push the depth that's present in the bindings. So we've got that high point where the Pink Horror is being applied, transitioning all the way down to the dark recess where the Kerberg Crimson was pooling. This is going to give us a nice gradation on our bindings and really help tie the piece together. With the bindings now done on this side, all we have to do is flip this over and replicate the effects on the other side. And there we go. We've got both sides of the bindings on our Power Axe complete. However, the piece is not finished. If this was yours, you'd want to come in and address the gold up here at the top, maybe finish the arm, and address the blood gem on the side. With our paint now dry, I think we're going to call the binding on this weapon complete. Remember, you can utilize this effect in a variety of different ways, not just on weapons. You can do it on pouches or belts or straps. The sky really is the limit, and it's not just 40K. You can use it for your Age of Sigmar stuff, your D&D miniatures, your War Machine miniatures, anything. So hopefully you get out there and you give it a shot. If you have any suggestions, thoughts, or ideas or critiques, make sure you sign up in the comments below. We'd love to interact with you guys, and we're committed to putting out better content and constantly pushing the envelope forward. Who better to let us know what we can do to improve than you guys, the ones who already interact with us and watch our content. If you happen to use this effect on any of your miniatures, maybe some of the bindings or wraps on your weapons, maybe the pouches or straps that I mentioned, make sure you consider checking out our Facebook group, The Tap Garrison, where you can showcase your hobby goodness with us, interact with the DRD team and other like-minded hobbyists like yourself who enjoy painting and gaming. If you happen to not use Facebook, but you'd still like to interact with us and showcase what you're working on, consider tagging us on Instagram when you throw up those posts. If you'd like to help support the channel, make sure you check out deathraydesigns.com. Anything you do over there helps keep the lights on, helps keep me employed so I can continue to produce content for you. I'd like to thank you guys for hanging out with me today during this tutorial. It's been a blast filming these so far. Hopefully you've enjoyed listening to me ramble and maybe learned something along the way. As always, happy wargaming, keep on painting, and I will catch you guys during the next video.